right. Well, good morning. What is it? December 9, our morning devotions, and almost the end of the year. Christmas is almost upon us. I want to welcome everyone this morning. We're in the book of Ruth, chapter 2. This is our devotion, episode 134. Our scripture reading was chapter 2, verses 14 to 23. And what's happened is Ruth and Naomi are back in Bethlehem. Small town, everybody knows they're back. All right. Words around. People have found out about who Ruth is, and the big thing we learn in this chapter about Ruth is that she's forsaken her own people. She's come back with Naomi, and she's identifying with the God of Israel. All right, and she's been a great help to Naomi. So that's basically the testimony of Ruth. And then we're going to learn other things about her, like she's a really hard worker. She stays in the field, hardly ever in the house the whole time she's in the field, gleaning, and then actually can glean right in the field, not just in the corners. So this really is a love story about Ruth and Boaz. And in the last chapter, it tells how all of this works out in the lineage of Christ. All right, these are all descendants of David, and David is are in Christ as a descendant of David. So it's a wonderful story. Only 4 chapters, and I just want you to note again that this is all happening in the time of the Judges. And when we were going through the book of Judges, it was a really really dark time. But see, even in the midst of really bad times, there are wonderful things that happen. All right, and that's what we're seeing here. So it starts in verse 1. We are introduced to Boaz, and it's interesting here. The two things that he's noted for is that he is a mighty man of wealth. That is, he's very rich. He's a rich man, and he is of the family of Elimelech. That is, Elimelech is related to Boaz. And as I said before, this story really is connected with Elimelech and then Naomi, his widow, uh, which which in the Levitical law, and we see this in the last chapter, if your husband were to die and you didn't have any kids, uh, you were to be married to the next of kin. In this case, there's one closer in kin than Elimelech. We get to that in the last part, but you go to your next of kin, and he will marry his brother's widow. That's built right into the Old Testament law, because you don't want your brother's name, the one that's passed away, his name to be forever lost in Israel. So you need to raise up an heir to inherit his deceased dad's property, and that heir is raised up by his brother. His brother marries his wife, the deceased brother's wife. They raise up an heir, and then all of the deceased dad's property goes to the son. All right, that's what this is all about. So that's being established right here in the beginning. I just want you to note again that none of this has anything to do with Ruth. When I was younger, reading through this passage of scripture, I wondered, well, where's Ruth? What's Ruth got to do with any of this? And essentially, right at the until you get to the end of the passage, it has nothing to do with it. The end of the book, because uh, Boaz is a near kinsman to Elimelech. The widow then is not Ruth; it's Naomi. And so Elimelech, I mean, Boaz is going to be an heir of Elimelech's stuff as the next of kin. And if the story were to progress, he would be marrying Naomi and raising up a family in Elimelech's name. All right, that's how that would go under normal circumstances. But what we'll see in the last chapter is Naomi and Ruth are a package deal. That's the whole idea. If he secures Elimelech's property through Naomi, then he says, and I get Ruth with the package. That's how this is all going to end. So you can try to calculate all the issues here, but you would think that probably Naomi's probably up in age, beyond the age of childbearing, and I mean everybody guesses about how old uh, Boaz is in relationship to Ruth, which the Bible never tells us. Those things, if the Bible doesn't tell us, aren't important. Uh, Although we might conjecture that there's some distance in age between Boaz and Ruth, but um, the Bible doesn't tell us anyway. Um, so let's look into the text. So we're introduced to Boaz. He's going to be the hero of the whole story. Boaz is going to be the hero. In verse 2, Ruth says, "I'm going to go glean." That's what poor people did. Gleaning, as you know, is just harvesting the crops out of the corners of the field. When these farmers in those days were in the field harvesting, they were supposed to not go right into the corners, but they were to round the corners off. So in every corner, there was food left there for the poor people to come and glean, so they could at least gather enough food for a day. All right. And so that's what she was going to do. She was going to do what all poor people do. They go into the field of rich people, and they go into the corners that have been rounded off and get whatever they can so they have something to eat. I mean, this is just part of the Israeli social economy in those days. So that's what she's going to do. So in verse 3, there's a word here, hap, which I love. In verse 3, and she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light on the part of the field belonging to Boaz. Happens like, and she was lucky. I love this. Whenever you see these happenstance things, we know it's all in the hand of God, but the way it looks is like she had no idea where she was going. She just stopped by a field, and luck of the draw, there he is. I mean, she's gleaning in Boaz's field, which is a near kinsman to Elimelech, which is who was Naomi's husband. I mean, listen to this. So she's in there, and she's very industrious. We uh, uh, we have in verse 4, one of the great passages in the Bible when it comes to being a boss. In verse 4, and it says, "Behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, said unto his reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee." That's the kind of boss you want to be. I love that passage of scripture because there's respect both ways between the employer and the employee. It can be done. It can be done. It doesn't have to be the employers there just grinding the employees and getting every drop of blood and sweat out of them to make the business go. And it doesn't always have to be a day where you go to work and say, I hate my job. Now, these guys are doing a job. It's in the heat of the day. It's not easy. This is agricultural society. But when he meets his crew, Boaz meets his crew in the field, there is a rapport between them. And if you're going to be an employee, this is the kind of man you want to be as you lead your men. And if you're an employee, I mean, if you're an employer, this is the way you want to lead your men. And if you're an employee, then this is the kind of boss that you want, and you'll work hard for this guy. All right, that's what we see about Boaz. I love that passage of scripture because if you can find a place of work, and work is good, where you have a boss like that, don't think that happens everywhere. Uh, the deeper I get into life, the less likely it is to run into a boss like this. I have had great bosses. I have great employers. And it wasn't that they didn't expect a hard day's work out of you, but I was always willing to give it because those guys in those days were just great guys to work for. See, it can happen. If you're the one hiring, you want to be a great guy, a great woman to work for. That's what makes it go. So they greet each other here with a blessing. Isn't it? How's that? And then it goes on, um, and the next thing is that um, Ruth catches Boaz's eye. I'm not going to go through that. He says, "Hey, who's that?" That's what happens. All right. Of all the people in the field, as he's keeping an eye out over what's happening in the day, as good bosses do, you got to what you expect, you got to inspect. Well, he's inspecting what he expects, and he says, "Hey, who's this new girl?" And they say, "Listen, that's Ruth. She's the one that came back with Naomi." And then he goes, "Oh, I know that whole story." Um, as soon as he, now it doesn't start that way, but as soon as he finds out who she is, her first words here are in verse 8. Oh, I got to tell you before I get to that. The men talk about how hard a worker Ruth is. She's already established a reputation. She works right alongside the men. And it says, and she hardly goes into the house at all, like to get a drink of water. She is out here really working hard, Boaz. Very impressed with this young lady. And so she's already establishing a reputation of being a hard worker. And here's another great principle: you can go a long ways if you just work hard. You can go a long ways. My dad told me, because my first job was working in a GM garage, and there wasn't always something to do. Uh, I mean, sometimes it got slow. So my dad told me, and what am I, 15, 16? He says, the first, what you got to do is you got to know where the broom is. And even if there's nothing to do, like there's no oil changes, there's no car washes, there's no There's no parts runs you have to make, and things are kind of slow because things get slow in every business. Grab a broom and start sweeping up the shop, which was huge. Always be industrious. And I remember that. And I did that. So I was always working. I was always doing something. I was never standing around. No employer wants somebody standing around. All right. It does not, there's a mental check mark. Like, I'm paying him to do nothing. I don't think so. He'd rather, the boss would rather be paying me at least to sweep the floor than to do nothing. You see? Well, that's her testimony. Her testimony is she's out here working really hard and she hardly goes into the house. She doesn't take any breaks. You see, these simple things. I have a story I want to tell you, but I'm not going to because I've already taken up enough time. But my boys were great at this. My boys, I mean, I know pride is a sin, but as far as appreciating the way the Lord's wired your sons, I mean, I've seen my sons do some remarkable things because people didn't think they would work that hard, and they do. Anyway, I can't do it now. Anyway, it was very cool. So uh, Ruth finds out, or Boaz finds out who Ruth is, and tells her, "Don't go anywhere. Stay in my fields." All right, that's the idea, because he's going to look after her because he's found out about who she is, and that is in verse 11. And it says, "And Boaz answered and said unto her, listen to this, small town, oh little town of Bethlehem. And Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath fully been showed me. I know all about what happened, all that thou hast done unto thy mother in law since the death of thy husband. You did not leave her alone. She has not been on her own since her husband died because you've been with her, what you've done for her, and all the things you've done, guys have done together. He says, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother. You left Moab. You left your folks and the land of thy nativity, the place where you were born. You left your folks in the place where you were born, and are come unto the people which thou knewest not heretofore. And you came to Israel, to people you did not know, looking after Naomi. What a wonderful testimony this is, isn't it? That's why this is a love story. Everything in here is refreshing. It's wonderful. Think what you've done, Ruth. I mean, this is a remarkable thing you've done here. All right. And it says, and then he says in this verse 12, the Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. And there it is, under whose wings thou art come to trust. You have come to trust in the God of Israel. This is great stuff. In the midst of the judges, when there's so much unbelief and so many things going wrong, what's happening here? She's leaving Moab. This is all, the whole story is going against the whole flow of Judges. She leaves Moab in the idolatry of Moab. She loves Naomi, and then we saw in John 3:16 and verse 1, she loves the God of Naomi. And here that whole truth is borne out, that you've become a part of the Israeli family unto Jehovah, under whose wings thou hast come to trust. What a great story, isn't it? This is just talking about a transition in a marvelous, wonderful way. And then it says in verse 13, and she said, it talks about, she says, I found favor in thy sight. And Boaz said unto her at mealtime, listen, come hither and eat of the bread and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers and reached her parched corn. Uh, and she did eat and was sufficed and left. That is, listen, when my crew gets together for lunch, we all sit together and I provided food for the crew, all right, which is not uncommon, right? You come and sit with come and sit with the guys, and when they're eating, you can eat. And she just ate till she was full, till she was sufficed. Isn't that amazing? You don't have to go out and spend your own money or eat of what you've already gleaned. I'll take care of lunch for you while you're here. Some very basic principles here. You should be jotting this all down. I hope you're jotting this all down. All right, because he's falling in love with Ruth. Okay, that's what's happening here, and he's doing what he can right now, to take care of her. And here it's lunch. He says, "I'm gonna help you out." And then it says in verse 15, and this is all remarkable. And when she was and when she was risen to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, "Okay, now he goes to the crew. Guys, come here. I got to tell you something. Everybody gather." They had a huddle. All right. Listen, this is what we're going to do. Saying, let her glean even among the sheaves and reproach her not. That is, don't make her just go into the corners. Let her go right out into the field. Let her gather grain like you're gathering the grain. And don't reproach her, because I'm sure these men were, I mean, they're a crew, right? But the whole idea of the poor people was just to glean in the corners. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there was some stipulations, at least among the crew, that going into the field and taking somebody else's grain might even be considered stealing. No, that does not come up here, but you know what I mean. The idea was that the field doesn't belong even to the poor people. The corners of the field, according to the law, belong to you to gather something. But you didn't just go out in the field. All right, you didn't just go out in the field alongside the workers and start taking up somebody else's property. And so that's why they would say, "Hey, get out of here. I mean, this isn't yours." All right, and he's saying when she's in there doing that, don't consider this something bad. Just let her go. All right, it's not stealing. I want her to take it. You got it? I'm the boss. You listen to me. I want her to take it. So when she gets out there, just let her have her way. See, that's what you get when you're the boss. All right, this is Boaz. He's there's a reason why he is according to verse 1, a mighty man of wealth. This guy's a thinker. All right. So he says, let her go into the fields, and then in addition to that, and we've heard this in verse 16, and let fall also some of the hands full of purpose. Hands full of purpose. You only see it, that phrase right here in the book of Ruth. Basically, all it says is after you've already gleaned it or after you've already harvested it out of the field to the young guys, just let it fall so she doesn't even have to go in the field. So she walks along and she's following you as she's in the field, and you're just going to let pieces of sheaves fall down in front of her so she can pick that up so she doesn't even have to go out there like with a scythe or a sickle and harvest it. Hands full, all right, a bundle on purpose. Do it on purpose. So this is going to be even a blessing above actually having to go into the field and take it herself. You're going to take it for her. You're going to drop it on the ground, and all she's going to have to do now is pick it up. So, I mean, what a deal. Boaz is a genius. That's all I got to say. I mean, this guy is a genius. And when you get to the last chapter, you know he's a genius. I mean, this guy, he knows how the whole system works, and he works it perfectly. All right. So let's keep going here. This is just the introduction. He's only talked to her a couple of times here, right? But this is the deal. And it says, and let fall some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them that she may glean them and rebuke her not. That is, after you drop it, just keep going. Don't tell her, hey, that's mine. Don't say anything. This is the plan, guys. You got it? Okay, you got it? She can go in the field and drop some on purpose for her, and don't say anything about it because this is what we're doing for her. Everybody on board? Okay, good, good. Here we go. And now you got to listen to this, verse 17. I had to look this up because I wasn't sure about how much this was. I didn't write it in the margin of my Bible. But it says, after all of this is just one day in the field. Okay, this is it. It says, and she gleaned in the field until even. So she's there until like the sun's going down all day. And you know why? Because this is all they have to survive on. If you get an opportunity to work and this is all you have, then stay at it. I mean, stay at it as long as you can. Don't be sent home. Don't get tired. You got to just stay at it because your survival is going to depend on this. And that's like I remember needing a job so bad. I'll tell you, when you get the job, you don't want to go home because there's things you have to take care of and people that are trusting on you to provide for. So once you get the job, you get there early and you stay there as late as you can. That's just how it works. I don't know about the world we're living in now because I hear all kinds of stories about people come to work or they don't work. I mean, I know guys that hire people and they can't get people to come to work, and it's crazy. I don't understand. After they agree to come, and this is the a deal that once they get there, then the employee decides they're going to just break the deal and come to work when they want. That doesn't work. It's never worked. This is an ancient tradition here. It's called hard work. Get there early, stay there late. Get there early, stay there late. Get there early, stay there late. And whoever's listening to me, if you're still in the work, if I mean I'm retired, or I don't know what you call it retired, but I mean I don't have to meet with a boss every morning. Let's say that. I was going to say that, except I have my own responsibilities from my beloved. The list gets pretty long, but I stop it whenever I want to do it. anyway, but listen, if you're working, get there early. The boss recognizes that. He'll see that. Don't be the first one to leave. Stay late. And I'm not saying don't work if you're not getting paid. I mean, I know people that do that. out of the goodness of their heart. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but once in a while, maybe to show, you know, your support. But I would not get in the habit of staying late when they're not paying you. Anyway, I'm just saying when this is the job, this is what you do, and we have the principle laid out here that she's a hard worker and she stays till even. And this is Ruth. For all of the folks that want to talk about the role of women, now she's not married here. I got that. And she's a widow. I got that. She's on her own, but I'm talking about the industriousness of this woman. I'm pretty sure Ruth would work a lot of men under the table. That's what I think. That's what I'm saying here. I think a lot of guys would get tired and go home before Ruth. I think they did. I think she stayed till even. I don't think everybody did. It doesn't say, but she's counting on this to feed her and Naomi. When you get that spirit within you, you can work. All right, that's what we have. And it says she gleaned till even, beat out that which she had gleaned. That is, she's not done yet. She's got to take the grain and beat the heads out of it so she can have something to grind to make bread. I mean, there's still more to do. You come to the end of the day, you ever feel like there's still more to do? Do you? I do. I mean, you get home. Life doesn't stop just because you came home from work. It does not stop just because you came home from work. There's all kinds of stuff. And sometimes guys, when they come home from work, and I'm guilty of this, because you've been busy all day, you come home from work, and then your wife wants to talk because she hasn't had anybody to talk to all day, and then you don't want to talk because you're all talked out. Yeah, you just got to put that aside and say to yourself, there's still more to do after I get home. My job as a husband does not end because I'm home from work. I mean, everybody should understand that you're probably tired after that. You want to put your feet up, but the point is, there's still stuff to do. There's things that are broken that need to be fixed, and there's still things you gotta run out and do. It does not end when you get home. And see, she's done gleaning, but that's not the end of the day. She's still got to beat it all out because it's not. You can't. It's still on the stalk. So she's got to beat it all out so she has the grain head so she can take it home and grind it so they can make bread. So many things to grasp here from this industrious woman. She's beautiful, industrious. She's godly. It's a perfect example of a godly woman. And she's still working is the point. It's now she's doing this into the night. It's getting later. I don't know how long it took for her to do that. And then she said, and it was about an ephah of barley. Now listen to this. I had to look up ephah. It's about a bushel, roughly a bushel. Now think, how much grain do you have for one person to pound it out of the head and get a bushel? I mean, it was a lot. She must have had it on a cart. You can't carry this. A bushel? I mean, before it's actually the heads are separated or the grain is separated from the head. How much is that to get a bushel for one woman? I mean, it's a lot. Anyway, I looked it up, and that bushel would have been enough to feed the two of them for about 5 days. She gets 5 days worth of food, just one dime, because of what Boaz did for her. All right. It doesn't say here use the wagon, or it doesn't say here use this or that to transport all of this. But the point is, she's got a lot. And then in a bushel, she could probably carry a bushel basket. But think of it. This is a remarkable woman, is the point I'm trying to say. All right. So she brings this bushel of grain home, and Naomi's going, whoa. She took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned. She brought forth and gave it to her, and to her that she had reserved after she had sufficed. And her mother-in-law said, where did you glean today? Well, this is remarkable. And the man's name of whom I brought today is Boaz. And here's Naomi again. All the bells and whistles go out. Boaz, bing, 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 bing. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and the dead. And Naomi said unto her, the man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. We're related. This is part of that whole system now she knows is going to go into operation now, how this all works. And here's Naomi. She's putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. All right. Uh, anyway, it goes on. And verse 23, and Ruth the Moabitess said, He also said unto me, Thou shalt keep fast by the young man until thou hast ended all my harvest. That is, don't leave my field, stay with the men. And we could do this again and again and again and again. I mean, this isn't just a one time thing. And Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter in law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go with the maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. Don't go any place else. What's going to happen? And I was wondering why that was there because she's had such a good day. Because, some people, for different reasons, say maybe the grass is greener on the other side, so they go someplace else. We're doing pretty good here, but I think Mr. Jones down the road here, I think that field's looking pretty good. Maybe we could do better there. No. She says, if anybody else goes or whatever's happening, don't leave. Stay in the field of Boaz. There is the place of blessing. Don't, if anybody else goes, say adios, amigos, but you're not, don't go, stay with them. And then it says, and so verse 23, so she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean until the end of the barley harvest and of the wheat harvest. So she's with him through the barley and wheat harvest and dwelt with her mother-in-law. And that's how the story ends. Now, every time I tell these stories that everybody knows, they're saying, well, I didn't really hear anything new out of any of that. And I'm saying, I hope you didn't hear anything new because this is an old story that you've heard 1,000 times. All I'm trying to say, beloved, is it is a great, great historic event in the midst of a terrible time that has happened in Israel during the time of the judges. That in the midst of this, it's like saying this. No matter how hard things get in America, let's just use that as an example. No matter what was happening in the time of the judges is far worse than anything that's ever happened here because these people were being invaded by enemy armies. All right, and this was undoubtedly during a time when the judges were in control of things, where the enemy had been driven out. Uh, but the point is, even in the times of hard times, families in circumstances within this sphere can be a time of wonderful blessing. Wonderful things can happen. Children are born, weddings take place, celebrations occur, people are uplifted, God is glorified. I mean, it turns out to be, even in the midst of the darkest time, God blesses in spheres, so to speak, people. And that's what's happening here. Ruth has left her mom and dad, left her country, come back. She is adopted the worship of Jehovah. She's taking great care of her mother-in-law, Naomi. Her reputation is already so stellar before she even gets to the field. Everybody knows what a wonderful woman she is. And then when she gets to the field, she just builds on her reputation because of the way she works and her industriousness, her thankfulness, her kindness, thanking Boaz for the job. Boaz responds with allowing her special privilege in the field with her men, gives her lunch, sends her home with 5 days worth of food. Naomi recognizes this, that we're on a trajectory that is the opposite of what happened in Moab. That's what's happening. In Moab, everybody dies, and now we're on a trajectory of life and blessing because we're back in the land, which is where God promised to bless Israel. The grass is not greener on the other side. You stay in the center of God's will. That is where things are the best. No matter what it might seem, you stay close to the Word, stay close to the leading of the Spirit. And that's where the blessing is. And then that's chapter 2 of Ruth. It's only going to get better after this. All right? It's gonna get better. It's going to turn into more of a love story in chapter 3. And then chapter 4, they're going to seal the deal. All right? And Boaz is just a remarkable man. He's a godly man. So we have a godly woman who is industrious and beautiful, and we have a godly man who is very rich and understands his duty, and plus he loves her, and these two are going to create make a family, which is also going to save Naomi. It's just a marvelous story. Okay, well that's it for this morning. The Lord bless you. All right, we got to have something more cheery after the book of Judges, right? This is one of those cheery up books. All right, so tomorrow, Lord willing, we'll hit chapter 3. All right, we'll see you.